The stars stretched like silver threads across the endless black of space. Aaron sat inside the cockpit of his small scout vessel, watching the blinking lights of the control board. He had been alone for weeks, carrying out patrol duty near the border where human space ended and the unknown began. The mission had been quiet until a sudden storm of energy waves tore through the sector. His ship shuddered under the force, alarms screamed, and before he could steer clear, the engines failed. The vessel spun out of control, falling toward a planet below. Aaron gripped the controls with steady hands. He was trained for emergencies. But this storm was beyond anything in his manuals. The ship's wings burned against the atmosphere, fire flashing around him as he fell. He tightened his harness and whispered to himself that he would not break. The world grew larger beneath him, a sphere of jagged mountains, sweeping deserts, and green valleys, with a final burst from the failing thrusters. He guided the vessel down into a wide canyon. The ship hit the rocky ground with a crash that shook every bone in his body, then slid until it stopped against a wall of stone. Smoke filled the cockpit. Aaron coughed, unfastened his harness, and forced open the hatch. Heat and dust rushed over him as he stumbled out into the canyon floor. His ship was broken beyond repair. The wings were torn, the engines cracked open like broken shells. He looked at the endless cliffs around him, sharp and towering, painted red by the setting sun. The air was thin but breathable. He would survive, at least for now. Aaron searched his supplies. A pack, a water container, a small energy blade for protection, and a beacon to send distress signals. He activated the beacon, but he did not know if anyone would hear it this far out. All he could do was wait and explore his new surroundings. As the night fell, the canyon grew colder. Strange lights flickered on the cliffs, like lanterns carried by unseen hands. Aaron narrowed his eyes. He was not alone on this world. He hid behind a rock, watching as figures appeared in the distance. They were tall, armored from head to toe, their movements graceful yet heavy with power. Their armor shone under the moonlight, marked with glowing lines that formed patterns like constellations. They carried long spears of energy, weapons humming with restrained force. Aaron's heart raced. But he remained still. He knew first contact could be dangerous. The figures moved with discipline, spreading out in formation as they approached the wreck. Their leader stepped forward. This figure was taller than the rest, armor painted with a deep silver hue. The helmet was shaped with a crest that marked rank. The leader raised a hand, and the others stopped. A clear voice echoed across the canyon. "Human," the voice said, "you are far from your world." Aaron stepped out from behind the rock, raising his empty hands to show he carried no threat. His training told him not to run, not to fight unless attacked. He met the gaze of the silver-armored figure, though the helmet hid the face within. "My ship was caught in the storm," Aaron said. "I mean no harm. I seek only survival." The armored figures whispered among themselves in a language filled with sharp tones and smooth rhythms. Then the leader moved closer. The others lowered their weapons slightly but did not relax. The leader stood before Aaron, tall enough that he had to look upward. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the leader spoke again. "I am Princess Saren of the Valari. This land belongs to my people. No outsider walks here without reason. Why should I let you live?" Aaron felt the weight of her words. She was not only a leader, but a guardian of her people's safety. He could not lie. He could not beg. He took a breath and answered with steady voice, "Because I am no enemy. My ship was broken by the storm. I cannot return home without help. If you end me here, nothing is gained. If you allow me to live, perhaps we may learn from one another." The princess studied him. In silence, her helmet hid her face, but her stance showed she measured every word. Around them, the soldiers shifted uneasily. Finally, she raised her spear and lowered it again. "You will come with us," she said. "But know this, human, you are not trusted here. Every step you take will be watched. If you bring danger, you will not leave this world." Aaron nodded. He had expected nothing less. Soldiers closed around him, their weapons gleaming like stars captured in metal. They led him out of the canyon, across rocky paths, lit by glowing crystals set in the cliffs. As they walked, Aaron observed everything. The Valari moved with perfect rhythm, each soldier matching the other. Their discipline carved by years of training. Yet they carried themselves not as conquerors, but as guardians of something precious. At last they reached a vast gate carved into the mountain. Symbols glowed across the stone, opening with a deep sound as the princess raised her hand. The gates parted, revealing a city hidden within the cliffs. Towers of crystal and metal rose like trees of light. Bridges connected platforms that hung high, above rivers flowing with silver streams. The air was filled with the sound of music from unseen instruments, a harmony that blended with the flowing water. Aaron stopped, awe filling his chest. He had seen many worlds, but none like this. The Valari city was not built to dominate the land, but to grow from it, as if it were born from the stone and water itself. The princess turned her gaze to him, perhaps noticing his wonder. "This is our home," she said. "It has stood for 1,000 years. Few outsiders have walked these paths. You will speak carefully within these walls." They brought him to a great hall at the heart of the city. Tall pillars of crystal rose to the ceiling, glowing softly with inner light. At the end of the hall stood a throne carved from stone and metal, its surface engraved with stars. The princess removed her spear and stood before the throne, but did not sit. Her soldiers lined the walls, silent as statues. "Human Aaron," she said, calling him by name, though he had not spoken it aloud. Perhaps her people had read it from his mind or his machine. "You stand in the court of the Valari. You will be judged not by your words alone, but by your spirit. You claim you are no enemy. You claim you seek only survival. In time, we will see if this is true." Aaron felt the weight of countless eyes on him. He bowed his head slightly, not as a subject, but as a sign of respect. He knew he had stepped into a trial greater than any he had faced before. Alone and far from home, he would need not only his training, but his heart to survive among these armored guardians. The princess lifted her spirit once more and declared, "Until your truth is known, you are my guest, though not yet my ally. Remember this, human. We see the armor you wear, the mask of your kind. What lies beneath is what will decide your fate." The hall fell silent. Aaron stood firm, knowing his journey had only begun. Aaron awoke in a chamber of stone and crystal. The walls glowed softly with veins of light that pulsed like living streams. A thin sheet covered him, woven from a material that felt softer than any fabric he had known. He sat up, his muscles stiff from the crash and the long march to the Valari city. The air was cool and fresh, filled with a faint scent like rain after a storm. For a moment he forgot he was a stranger among aliens who doubted his every step. The door opened with a smooth sound, and a Valari soldier entered. The armor gleamed in the glow, polished and sharp. The soldier did not speak but motioned for Aaron to follow. Aaron rose, fastening his pack to his shoulder. He carried no weapon, for they had taken his blade when he entered the city. His only defense now was his words and his will. They walked through long halls where other Valari paused to stare. Their eyes followed him, some filled with curiosity, others with caution. Whispers passed through the crowd like wind over grass. Aaron kept his head high, though he felt the weight of their gazes. He reminded himself that fear would not help him, but calm strength might. The soldier led him to the great hall where Princess Saren waited. She stood at the base of the throne, her silver armor reflecting the glow of the pillars. Around her gathered the court's elders, commanders, and citizens of rank. Their faces were lined with wisdom, their eyes sharp with judgment. The hall grew silent as Aaron entered, every sound hushed by expectation. Princess Saren raised her spear and spoke. Her voice was clear, echoing in the high chamber. "Human Aaron," she said, "you have come to our world uninvited, carried by the storm. You asked for survival, yet survival is not given freely here. Trust must be earned, and truth must be shown. The Valari do not open their gates to strangers without trial. If you would prove your worth, you must face the challenges we set before you." Aaron met her gaze, though her face was hidden behind the crest of her helmet. He bowed slightly in respect. "I accept," he said. A ripple of whispers spread through the court. Some laughed softly, others frowned. Few had expected a human to agree so quickly. Saren lifted her hand, and the voices ceased. "Then hear this," she said. There are 3 trials. The first will test your strength, for a weak spirit cannot stand among the Valari. The second will test your mind, for power without wisdom is empty. The third will test your endurance, for a heart that breaks too easily brings no trust. If you fail, you will be sent away beyond our borders, never to return. Do you understand? I understand, Aaron answered. The princess turned to the court. So it shall be. The trials begin at dawn. The next morning, the first trial began in the arena of stone. The arena was carved into the mountain itself, a vast circle with walls rising high. The stands were filled with Valari citizens who had come to witness the challenge. The air buzzed with anticipation, voices rising like a tide as Aaron entered the field. His opponent awaited him, a Valari warrior, clad in dark armor, taller and broader than Aaron by half. The warrior's spear hummed with energy, glowing along the blade. Aaron carried no weapon, for the princess had decreed that he must rely on his own strength. The crowd roared as the warrior stepped forward, raising the spear in salute. Aaron raised his hands, empty but steady. A horn sounded, and the trial began. The warrior charged, spear flashing in a blur. Aaron leapt aside, the strike cutting into the stone where he had stood. Dust burst into the air. Aaron knew he could not match the Valari in raw power. His advantage lay in agility, in using speed to survive. He ducked and rolled, keeping just out of reach of the spear. Each strike shook the ground, sending cracks through the stone. The crowd shouted, some cheering, others mocking. To them he looked weak, a human dodging rather than fighting. But Aaron held his focus. He studied the warrior's movements, the rhythm of attack, the weight behind each swing. He saw the brief pause between strikes, the slight shift in stance before a thrust out at last. The moment came. The warrior lunged forward, spear aimed at his chest. Aaron sidestepped and grabbed the shaft with both hands, twisting with all his strength. The weapon struck the ground, stuck fast in the cracks. In that instant of surprise, Aaron pushed against the warrior's chest, using momentum to knock the giant off balance. The warrior stumbled backward and fell hard against the stone. The arena fell silent. Aaron stood, breathing hard, sweat dripping from his brow. The warrior rose slowly, then placed the spear flat on the ground before him. With a respectful nod, he acknowledged defeat. The crowd erupted, cheers mixing with murmurs of disbelief. A human had won, not with greater strength, but with clever timing and quick thought. Princess Saren watched from her throne, her stance unreadable. She raised her hand, and the voices quieted. Trial of strength is complete, she declared. The human has prevailed. The second trial was held in the Hall of Stars, a chamber where the ceiling shone with constellations carved into crystal. Here the test was not of muscle, but of mind. Aaron stood before a great table where a puzzle of light awaited him. Beams of energy formed shifting patterns, weaving into knots that had to be untangled through careful touch. A Valari scholar stood nearby to watch. The puzzle was ancient, a measure of patience and strategy. Many young Valari failed it on their first attempt. Aaron studied the glowing lines. They shifted whenever he touched them, moving like rivers of fire. If forced too quickly, they tangled tighter. He paused, breathing slow, letting his thoughts settle. He remembered training simulations where patience mattered more than speed. He began gently, guiding the lines with steady hands. Slowly the knots loosened, the streams flowing into clearer paths. The scholar raised his brows, surprised at the calm focus of this outsider. Hours passed, but Aaron did not falter. At last the puzzle opened, forming a star that shone bright across the hall. The scholar bowed his head. The human has solved the pattern. Princess Saren spoke again, her voice carrying through the chamber. Trial of mind is complete. The third trial came under the burning sun of the outer desert. Aaron was led beyond the city walls, where endless sand stretched in every direction. Here the test was endurance. He was to cross the desert and return with a crystal of fire that grew only in the deepest heat. No guide, no weapon, only the will to walk and survive. The desert was merciless. The sun beat down like fire, and the ground burned under his boots. Aaron drank sparingly from the water flask they had given him. Each step felt heavier than the last. He thought of his broken ship, of the long silence of space. of the faces of his people who would never know if he survived. Yet he kept moving, one step after another. By night, the cold swept in, sharp and biting. Strange creatures moved across the dunes, their eyes glowing in the dark. Aaron kept to the ridges, using rocks for cover. Hunger gnawed at him, thirst pressed his throat, but he held firm. Days passed, and still he pressed on. At last, deep in the desert, he found it. A crystal glowing with inner flame, rising from the ground like frozen fire. He cut it free with his bare hands, though the heat burned his skin. Carrying it close, he turned back toward the city. When he returned, staggering and worn, the people gasped. He fell to one knee before the throne and placed the crystal at the feet of Princess Saren. The hall grew silent. The princess looked down at him, and for the first time, she lifted her hand to remove her helmet slightly. Her eyes, sharp yet thoughtful, met his. "The trials are complete," she said. "The human has endured." Aaron bowed his head, his body weak but his spirit strong. He had faced strength, mind, and endurance, and he had not broken. Now the true test would begin, the one hidden beneath the armor of words and silence. The desert trial had left Aaron weary in body but strong in spirit. His hands were scarred from the heat of the fire crystal, his skin burned by sun and chilled by night winds. Yet when he placed the crystal before Princess Saren, he did not feel shame or weakness. He had endured. He had proven that his will was not fragile. The court of the Valari had seen his struggle and his success. Some whispered in respect, others in doubt. He was a stranger after all, a human whose kind they believed reckless and proud. Yet none could deny that he had passed the trials placed before him. Princess Saren dismissed the court after declaring his success. The people left in waves, their voices fading through the halls. Only a few guards remained, silent as shadows. Aaron stood at the base of the throne, waiting. He did not know if his fate was now sealed or if more tests would come. Saren descended the steps slowly, her silver armor gleaming in the crystal light. She walked with grace, every movement measured, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. She stopped before him, her helmet hiding her face as always. "You have done what few expected," she said. Her voice was calm, neither praise nor scorn. "You have passed strength, mind, and endurance. Yet still I cannot see what lies beneath. A mask of metal is one thing, but the heart is another." Aaron lifted his head. He had grown used to her tone, firm, distant, yet never cruel. "What more do you wish to see, princess?" For a moment she did not reply. The silence stretched, heavy with thought. Then she raised her hand and pressed the side of her helmet. With a smooth hiss, it loosened. She lifted it slightly, though not fully. Only her eyes showed, dark and sharp like polished stone, filled with a depth that startled him. She studied him closely, her gaze searching. Then she asked the question, soft yet carrying through the empty hall. "Can you see beneath my armor?" The words hung in the air. Aaron understood at once that she did not speak of steel and crystal plates. She spoke of something deeper, something hidden behind the image of the unbreakable warrior and the untouchable princess. Her armor was not only metal but duty, tradition, and expectation. Aaron felt the weight of the moment. He could not answer lightly. He thought of the trials he had faced, the way they had forced him to reveal more than strength. He thought of the Valari people, proud yet guarded. He thought of Saren herself, standing always in front of her people like a shield, never showing weakness. "I do not see only armor," Aaron said at last, his voice steady. "I see someone who carries a burden greater than any weapon. You wear this armor because your people need it. You hide what you feel because they look to you for strength. But armor cannot hide everything. Behind it, I see a leader who is not only strong, but also lonely. You wonder if anyone can see you as more than a symbol." Saren's eyes widened slightly. It was the first sign of surprise he had seen from her. She lowered the helmet a little further, showing more of her face-high cheekbones. A mark of heritage, lips pressed in thought. "Lonely," she repeated, as if testing the word. "Many call me protector. Many call me ruler. None call me lonely." Aaron shook his head gently. "They cannot, because they do not dare. They need you to be perfect. They need you to be unbroken. But I am not one of them. I can say what they cannot. You are not just a princess. You are a person, and persons feel pain, doubt, and fear. That is what I see beneath the armor. The hall was silent. Even the guards seemed to fade into the background, as if the moment belonged only to the two of them. Saren looked at him with eyes that held storms and silence both. Slowly, she removed her helmet completely. Her face was revealed at last. She was striking, not only for beauty, but for the strength carved into every line. Yet there was something softer too, something hidden that no one else was meant to see. You astonish me, human, she said, her voice quieter now. Your kind is known for ambition and fire, yet you speak of the heart as if it were a weapon stronger than steel. Aaron did not look away. Because it is. Steel breaks. Hearts endure. It is what kept me walking in the desert. It is what made me fight without a weapon. And it is what lets me see you now, not as armor, but as Saren. For the first time since he had met her, Saren's stance shifted. She no longer stood as the distant ruler, but as someone who had allowed a wall to fall. A faint breath escaped her, not quite a sigh, but something close. You see me, she said. More than my court, more than my guards, more than even my own kin. You see me, and you are not afraid. Aaron nodded. Why should I be? To see someone truly is not fear. It is respect. The silence that followed was not heavy, but calm, like the stillness after rain. Saren turned her face slightly, as if unwilling to let him see the emotion stirring within her. Yet when she looked back, her eyes shone with a new light. Perhaps, she said slowly, perhaps the storms did not bring you here by chance. Perhaps there is reason in your presence. Aaron did not answer at once. He knew better than to claim fate or destiny. Yet he felt it too, the sense that something greater was unfolding. Saren replaced her helmet, though now it felt less like a barrier and more like a choice. She stepped back, her voice regaining the firmness of command. But it no longer carried the same distance. You will remain here under my watch, she said. The trials prove your body and mind. Tonight you prove your heart, but the court will not be swayed so easily. They will demand more proof before they trust you as I do now. Aaron bowed his head slightly. Then I will face what comes. She studied him one last time before turning away. Rest, human. Your journey is far from over. As the guards led Aaron back through the halls, he carried the weight of her question within him. Can you see beneath my armor? He had given his answer, and it had astonished her. But he knew the true test was not finished. To see her heart was one thing. To earn her trust and the trust of her people was another. Yet for the first time since the crash, Aaron felt not only the fight for survival, but the spark of something greater. A bond had been formed, fragile yet real, between human and Valari princess. It was a bond that might change not only his fate, but the fate of both their peoples. That night, as he lay in the quiet chamber of stone and crystal, he thought of her eyes when she had removed her helmet. Strong yet questioning, fierce yet vulnerable. He knew then that this was no longer only about survival. This was about connection. This was about proving that even across worlds, hearts could be understood. And somewhere deep within the halls of the Valari city, Princess Saren stood alone with her thoughts. She touched the helmet that once felt like unbreakable armor and whispered to herself words no one else would hear. He saw me. The next morning, the Valari city awoke to light spilling over crystal towers and golden walkways. Sunlight touched every surface with warmth, reflecting off the rivers and bridges with sparkling brilliance. Aaron walked through the halls with quiet steps, the events of the previous day still vivid in his mind. The princess's question echoed within him. Can you see beneath my armor? He had given his answer in words, but now he knew that the truth of his actions would be measured even more carefully. Aaron was led to the outer gardens by a Valari guide. The gardens were unlike any he had seen. Plants glowed softly, flowers pulsed with inner light, and vines reached toward the sky as if they were alive in rhythm with the city itself. Birds with feathers of silver and gold moved among the trees, singing notes that seemed to harmonize with the hum of the crystals embedded in the stone paths. Princess Saren waited near a small fountain, the water gleaming like liquid diamonds. She did not speak at first, simply watching him approach. Her armor reflected the morning sun, yet it no longer seemed as formidable as before. The trials had revealed something of his strength, and her eyes had opened a little to see him differently. "You have rested," she said. Her voice carried calm authority, yet underneath it was a thread of curiosity. "You have seen much in our city. You have faced our trials. Yet there's one thing more I wish to know. Will you truly understand what it means to see beneath my armor?" Aaron stopped a few paces from her. His hands relaxed at his sides. "I will try," he said. He had no way to know if his words would suffice. Yet he knew actions often spoke louder than speech. The princess gestured to the path before them. "Walk with me. Let us see how you respond not only to words but to the world around you." They moved along the crystal walkways. The city stretched out before them, towers of living stone and bridges of glowing metal. Children played safely in the gardens, watched over by guardians whose armor reflected their movements in perfect symmetry. Citizens moved through the streets, carrying out daily tasks with precision and harmony. Yet every eye they passed followed them for a moment, curious, cautious, and questioning. Aaron felt the weight of their gazes, yet he did not falter. "Why do you watch so closely?" he asked softly. Saren glanced at him, her eyes reflecting both amusement and seriousness. "Because you are an outsider. You are human. Our people have known humans only through stories of war and conquest. We have learned caution, and yet you move among us without fear." Aaron nodded. "Because I do not see the armor first. I see the person who wears it. That is what I have learned from the trials. Strength, mind, endurance, these are only part of who a person is. The heart is another part, and that part cannot be hidden forever." The princess stopped at a small bridge spanning a river of silver water. She turned to face him fully. "Then tell me, human Aaron, what do you see beneath my armor now? Not in words alone, but in your understanding of me." Aaron took a deep breath. He had considered this carefully since the question first came. He spoke slowly, choosing words with care. "I see someone who bears responsibility that would crush many. I see someone who sacrifices rest, comfort, and even joy for the sake of others. I see courage not only in battle, but in the quiet moments when you choose to act, even though the world expects perfection from you. I see hope in your eyes, even when your heart is weighed down by duty. And I see trust waiting for those who prove they can hold it without fear." Saren listened in silence. Her eyes softened, her stance shifting in a way that surprised even herself. Her helmet remained in place, yet the small movements of her head and the tilt of her shoulders betrayed her reaction. She had not expected so much insight from a human. Her people had trained her to value strength and strategy. Yet here was someone who understood something deeper, something beyond the surface of steel. "In ceremony, you astonish me again," she said quietly. "Your kind is known for boldness, sometimes for arrogance. Yet you speak with humility. You do not claim to know all, yet you see clearly." Aaron stepped closer, though he kept a respectful distance. "I have learned to see clearly because I have nothing else to rely on. Strength is temporary. Weapons break. Mine can be fooled. The heart is the constant, and that is what you asked me to see." The princess lowered her gaze for a moment. A shadow of doubt and vulnerability crossed her face, quickly replaced by composure. "It is true," she said softly. "Most people do not see beyond the armor. They see the leader, the soldier, the symbol. Few see the person, and fewer still dared to speak it aloud." Aaron looked into her eyes, unwavering. "Then you are not alone in this. Even amid your people, there can be understanding. Even amid isolation, there can be connection. That is what I offer, princess. Not just respect, but recognition of who you truly are." For a moment, silence hung between them. The sound of flowing water, the distant hum of the city, the chirping of glowing birds, all of it seemed to pause as she considered his words. Her heart had been guarded for so long, shaped by centuries of expectation and duty. Yet in front of her stood a human who had faced trials, desert, and uncertainty, and who had refused to look at her armor first. He looked at the person beneath it. "You speak as if you understand the weight I carry," she said at last. "And yet, you are human. How do you bear such understanding without the same history, the same bonds?" Aaron smiled faintly. "Because understanding does not require history. It requires attention. It requires noticing what others ignore. It requires courage to see truth where others see only surface. I have faced survival, fear, and solitude. Those lessons have taught me to see what matters. And in you, Princess, I see not only a warrior, but a soul carrying a world on her shoulders. Saren's hands twitched slightly at her sides, hidden within gauntlets of silver. The weight of her armor felt different now, as if some invisible barrier had been softened by his words. She had been trained to be untouchable, to show no sign of doubt or emotion in front of her people. Yet here, in the quiet of the gardens, she felt seen, truly seen, and it was a sensation she had not allowed herself to feel in many cycles of her life. "You have given me something rare," she said. "You have seen me for what I am, not what I appear to be. You have spoken of my burden without pity, without judgment, without expectation. That is astonishing." Aaron inclined his head. "It is what you asked. It is what you needed, perhaps more than you realize, for a long time." They stood in quiet understanding, the crystal rivers of the garden reflecting the first light of day. In that moment, the trials of strength, mind, and endurance seemed small compared to the trial of trust and recognition. The human had met it and passed, not by force or cleverness, but by seeing with the heart. Princess Saren lifted her helmet fully this time, revealing her face in sunlight. Her eyes held a mix of admiration and caution. "You have answered well," she said. "Not everyone can. Not everyone should. But you have earned my respect. And perhaps my trust." Aaron nodded. "Then I will continue to earn it. In word, in action, and in choice. Not because I must, but because it matters." She studied him once more, silent in thought. Many humans would have claimed victory over trials. Few would have claimed understanding of heart. You are unlike those who have come before. And for that, I must consider what you may bring to this world, not only to my people, but to all who live within it. Aaron felt a spark of hope. For the first time, the princess had allowed him to step beyond the limits of the trials. He was no longer only a test subject. He was a participant in something larger, a bridge between two worlds. "You have answered," Saren said at last, "and your answer astonishes me. Now, the path forward is yours to choose. We will see how your present shapes what comes next. For you have proven that beneath armor, beneath expectation, and beneath judgment, there's truth. And truth is stronger than any weapon." Aaron bowed his head, silently acknowledging the weight of her words. He had not come to the Valari world seeking recognition, yet it had been offered in the form of trust. And he understood now that trust, once earned, could be the strongest bond of all. The morning sun reflected off her armor, silver and glowing, yet somehow lighter now. Her eyes met his, no longer only guarded but aware, thoughtful, and open. Aaron knew that the answer he had given was more than words. It was understanding, courage, and empathy expressed in the quiet moments between trial and action. And for the first time, he felt that their fates were intertwined in a way that might shape not only their lives, but the future of two worlds. The city of the Valari awoke to a calm morning. Light spilled across crystal towers, illuminating streets where citizens moved with purpose. Aaron walked beside Princess Saren along a high terrace that overlooked the city. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of the glowing gardens below. Birds with silver and gold feathers swooped and sang, their notes blending with the hum of the crystal towers. For a moment, Aaron simply watched. The city was alive, full of harmony, yet he sensed a tension that came from centuries of caution. The Valari had always trusted little, even among themselves. To allow a human to walk freely through their home required more than trials. It required proof of heart. Princess Saren spoke quietly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "You have proven much, Aaron. You faced the trials, endured the desert, and answered the question I posed. Yet trust is fragile. My people will not accept it easily." Aaron nodded. "I understand. It is not enough to speak the truth once. It must be shown in action, every day." She turned to him, her silver armor gleaming. "Then you must decide if you will stay. Not because I command it, but because your choices will shape what comes next. If you remain, you will be under watch. Yet you will also be part of something greater than survival. Aaron considered her words. His ship was destroyed, his mission incomplete. Yet he felt a sense of purpose here he had not known before. The trials had shown him the strength of Valari people, the depth of their discipline, and the weight of their responsibility. And Princess Saren had shown him courage hidden beneath armor and expectation. I will stay, he said finally, not to conquer, not to rule, but to learn, to help, and to understand, and to see what can be built between our worlds. Saren studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. So be it. But know this, staying here means more than survival. It means facing the eyes of those who doubt you. It means proving yourself not through force, but through choice. Are you ready? Aaron lifted his chin. I am ready. Their first step was to walk through the city streets. Citizens paused, staring at the human walking alongside their princess. Some whispered, some frowned, some stared openly. Aaron kept his head high, moving with calm confidence. He did not speak to prove anything, but his presence alone was a statement. He had passed trials and faced the question of the heart, and now he walked as an equal in understanding. Saren guided him to the council chambers, where elders and commanders waited. The room was large and circular, with crystal pillars that reflected light across the walls. Each person present had watched the trials and heard the words exchanged between princess and human. Some were skeptical. Others were curious. None spoke at first. You have seen the trials, Saren said, her voice steady. You have seen the answer to the question I posed. Yet one remains. Will this human bring danger, or will he bring understanding? All eyes turned to Aaron. He stepped forward, keeping his voice calm but firm. I seek no conquest. I seek no gain beyond learning and helping. I have faced your challenges, endured what your land requires, and spoken the truth as I see it. I do not ask for trust blindly. I ask only for a chance to show it through actions. If I fail, judge me by the results. If I succeed, then judge me by the same measure. I am not here to replace your ways, only to stand alongside them and learn. The chamber was silent. The elders whispered among themselves in soft tones, their eyes thoughtful. The commanders shifted in their seats, some nodding slightly. Saren watched, her face calm but her eyes alert. The words had meaning because they were backed by trials and endurance. Aaron had proven himself not only in strength and mind but in character. Finally, an elder spoke. This human has faced what few could endure. He has answered the question of the heart. Words are one thing, yet the truth of actions cannot be denied. We will allow him to remain under observation. Let his deeds speak further. A murmur of agreement passed through the chamber. Saren nodded, turning to Aaron. You may stay. But remember, respect must be earned every day. The city will watch, and so will I. Your actions now define not only your fate, but the chance for our worlds to find harmony. Aaron inclined his head. I understand. Over the following weeks, Aaron began to learn the rhythm of Valari life. He trained alongside soldiers, not to replace them, but to understand their discipline and strategy. He walked among citizens, helping where he could, listening more than he spoke. Slowly, suspicion gave way to curiosity, and curiosity began to grow into respect. He also spent time with Princess Saren, not in command or lecture, but in conversation and quiet walks through the glowing gardens. They discussed the past, the trials, and the responsibility of leadership. Saren began to reveal more of herself, showing the fears she carried, the doubts she had hidden, and the dreams she rarely shared. Aaron listened without judgment, offering insights and understanding that surprised her. You understand me better than my own advisors, Saren admitted one evening as they watched the city lights reflect on the river. Most see only the armor. Most see only the title. You see the person beneath it. Aaron smiled faintly. Because you asked me to, and because understanding is not limited to our kind. Hearts can be understood across worlds if one chooses to notice. Her eyes softened. I did not know it could feel this freeing. To be seen without expectation, without fear, without judgment. Your presence has changed more than you may realize. Aaron looked down at the river, the silver water glowing under the soft light of the city. It is mutual. I came here for survival. Yet I have found something greater. Trust, respect, understanding. These are stronger than any weapon I could carry. Sarah nodded, a quiet smile touching her lips. Then perhaps our worlds have a chance to be more than rivals. Perhaps even enemies can learn from what we have begun here. As days turned into weeks, Aaron's influence began to show. He helped improve communication between soldiers and citizens, encouraged collaborative training, and assisted in problem-solving efforts that required creativity beyond traditional strategies. The Valari began to see him not as a stranger, but as someone who could bridge gaps. Not through domination, but through understanding and action. Princess Saren noticed the change, not only in her people but in herself. She no longer felt as isolated as she once had. Aaron's presence reminded her that strength was not only in armor and strategy, but in trust and shared purpose. She had worn her armor for centuries, protecting herself from disappointment and betrayal. Yet with him, she could allow some vulnerability, knowing it was met with respect and care. One evening, she led Aaron to the edge of the cliffs overlooking the desert where his journey had begun. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold and violet. "Do you remember your first steps on this land?" she asked softly. Aaron nodded, remembering the crash, the storm, the first meeting with armored soldiers. "It feels like another life," he said. "I was alone then. I survived because I had to. And now?" she asked. "Now," Aaron said, "I'm not alone. I have learned, I have been tested, and I have been trusted. That makes all the difference." Saren lowered her gaze to him. "You have shown me that trust can be earned, even between worlds. You have reminded me that armor is not a shield from others alone, but sometimes from oneself. You have proven that hearts can connect even when circumstances seem impossible." Aaron stepped closer. "We have proven it together, not by force, but by choice, not by power, but by understanding." For the first time, Saren allowed herself to smile fully. Her armor still shone, yet it felt lighter somehow, as if his words and presence had eased some of the weight she had carried for so long. She turned to face the desert, then back to Aaron. "Then let this be the beginning," she said. "Not only for you and me, but for our people. Let it be the start of something stronger than fear, something stronger than walls, something built on trust and understanding." Aaron nodded. "And I will continue to prove it every day, not because I must, but because it matters." Together, they stood at the edge of the cliff, looking over the city, the gardens, and the desert beyond. A human and a Valari princess from different worlds had faced trials, answered questions of the heart, and formed a bond that neither could ignore. The trials had tested strength, mind, and endurance, but it was understanding and choice that had forged the strongest connection. In that moment, the city below seemed brighter, the rivers more alive, the bridges of crystal more than stone. They were symbols of what could be built when fear gave way to trust, when armor was seen not as a wall but as a part of the person within. And so, human and princess stood together, not as ruler and outsider, but as allies, friends, and witnesses to a beginning that could change the fate of two worlds.